We have with us today Kanchan Gupta, who's a legend in Indian journalism. Kanchan, you have worked with the best. You started off with M.J. Akbar. I don't know if you consider him one of the best now, but in 1982 you started with him at the Telegraph. Then you worked with Sunanda Datta Ray, then with Vinod Mehta, and then you took a break from journalism and worked with Advani, L.K. Advani and Atal Bihari Vajpayee. Why did you leave journalism, join, say, what you would call the political campaign and then the government?
I think I had put in almost 15 years. I was getting a bit bored and I wanted to do something which was exciting. Vinod left the Pioneer. I mean, that's common knowledge why he left, the circumstances under which he left. And there was a great degree of disquiet among us. We weren't too sure which way the paper was headed. A rather unfortunate incident happened which involved me and the then executive editor, which sort of made me realize that perhaps I should take a break. And
was it an ideological difference?
No, it was nothing to do with ideology. You know, Madhu, it's very strange. People think that I'm this rabid right-winger, and I was born a right-winger.
I thought you'd come here with a trishul screaming.
Yeah,
with an orange band on your head.
Yeah, and that I am a bigoted fundamentalist, a fanatic who whatever.
Some of your writing does scream a bit.
I was very left of center when I came to Delhi. And I had problems with both MJ. I mean, of course, I was low down in the food chain there in the Telegraph, and definitely in the Statesman with Shunondo, who thought that I was very pink, if not red. What really?
So when did you turn orange?
When did I turn orange? I used to visit Ayodhya very often, as would your news track team. That was in many ways a turning experience in my life. It sort of made me realize that here I am. I mean, I had absolutely no idea how the India beyond the cities thinks of identity, thinks of faith, and that made me question this whole thing of urge to be nice to others. You know, that your writing must conform to set parameters of political correctness, and that you must not say things which upset people.
What I'd like you to answer is that there was almost a joyous embracing that we don't have to be this pious, sanctimonious.
We don't have to be nice.
Yeah, and grabbing the other extreme of being totally violent. Do you think that was the only way to go?
If you were to talk about violence and whether violence is a necessary ingredient in terms of identity building, no, it is not. No sane person would endorse violence. No rational person would endorse belligerence. But till December 6th happened, there was this great rising assertion that you must listen to our voice. The Indian state somehow failed to listen to the voice. The Indian state should have reached out and said, fine, you do have a point. And therefore, let's look into how best to solve the dispute. Something which was left pending for so many years, which none of us knew about, frankly, till the Ram Janki Rath Yatras began, which were taken out by the VHP, and everybody was very curious, what's happening in Ayodhya? I mean, what's going on over there? And that's how we landed up over there.
But you think the same kind of thing could have done without the actual physical destruction of, as they called it, the Dhacha? Even L.K. Advani, with all respect to him, he did also seem surprised then when they actually brought it down.
I don't think anybody was quite prepared
for the actual
destruction. That
they
this
thought they
would
could
actually
go there.
come tumbling down.
Yeah. But as we saw on the news track tapes, there was a core group that was fully trained and prepared to do it. And they pushed out the people who were just there, not knowing the real plan. And I think there is evidence.
This will be one of those eternal mysteries which will never get solved. You can keep on appointing commissions and inquiries, and you can investigate till the cows come home, but you will never be able to establish who did it. There is also this theory that that Narasimha Rao did it. I mean, it gets increasingly bizarre that it was done to, okay, let's get rid of this once and for all.
But one clue was that when Uma Bharti was giving her speech the day before, she did say, and she exhorted the crowd, she said, will you listen to us? Will you obey us? Will you do exactly as you're told? And will you stop when we tell you to stop? Will you go ahead? Because I think that leadership believed that they could do a kind of a rally there, make the demands, and then disperse. I don't think they actually saw that it would come down.
I don't think anybody who was on the stage that day, on the dais, on that elevated thing, I don't think any one of them really expected events to take that kind of a turn.
But the week after, there was so much of confusion and noise, and everybody, the general press, who hadn't actually been there, particularly the print media, they presumed that it was because of Advani asking them to do it. And we know who were on the ground that it was many different factions working separately.
As I said, Madhu,
with one umbrella, of course.
I don't think any of the 5 or 6 leaders who were present over there was even remotely in knowledge of what was happening, leave alone executing the plan. I am very clear in my mind on that.
Was this the time that the Hindutva in you was connected, that you woke up to this?
On December 6th, no. I mean, even before that, 1989, 1988, 1990, when the CRPF opened fire, not the CRPF, the provincial constabulary, they opened fire. And I was there, and Manoj Raghuvanshi was there. And we had just gone inside, inside the disputed structure, and we were coming out, and there were crowds all over the place, and there was curfew there had been curfew for the last 1 month or so. Mulayam had said that Parinda par nahi kar payega. And Uma Bharti had appeared in Ayodhya disguised. She entered in disguise, riding a motorcycle. There was great excitement. It was more like a mela. But on the day of the dharna, there was this great surge of tens and thousands of people coming from across the Saryu, coming from Faizabad, from Ayodhya. It was amazing. And I remember Mark Tully saying that this is unbelievable. This is something which even he, with many times my experience, had never seen. And we went in for a deco inside the structure, and we came out, and we were standing on the Ram Chabutra. And there was this sadhu who was standing next to me. And suddenly we could hear the crack of bullets being fired, and the police had started firing. And in such a situation, usually there is, people start running helter-skelter, and there is great disorder, and people are trampled. But you won't believe me, I mean, not a single person moved. It was almost as if they were saying, come kill me. And the sadhu who was standing next to me, I suddenly saw him just crumble and fall. He had been shot between his eyes. At a purely if you were, I mean, at one level, you know, it just told, I mean, I was so stunned that it could have been me.
This was a couple of days before December 6th?
Not 1992.
Okay, it was...
This was, I think, 89 when the firing happened.
That how did you then, from this kind of objective, dispassionate journalist, then become so involved in the what was then called the Hindutva movement?
I sort of sincerely felt that we tend to take a very urban, very distant view of events, which has no resemblance at all to how the great unwashed masses of India look at things, or even look at us. And unless there is that connect, I am not being truthful to myself. And although I have never written anything which endorses violence or go kill, but I have always pleaded that...
But you've quoted Goebbels and Hitler and rather violent stuff. So where do we hold the commentariat in contempt, those of us on the right side of the political spectrum, and if I may dare suggest the right side of history, go from here? Do we step back after a robust counterattack? Do we retreat from the battlefield of ideas? Do we give up the fight because the commentariat is a mighty foe, a modern-day Goliath, while we are the puny Davids? Do we consider the war won because a splendid battle has been won this past week? Or do we regroup, recuperate, rearm, and revive the attack with matching, if not greater fury and vigor?
Yeah.
That's pretty tough stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I always believe that you have to fight back with ideas. You have to contest ideas. This whole thing, the left liberal construct which has been imposed on us, that needs to be contested brick by brick. And you can't do it simply by saying, oh, you are wrong. I have to know, I have to articulate why you are wrong.
So what do you see
Arun
wrong?
Shourie actually really started that process, and he still inspires me.
But what do you see wrong exactly with the left liberal construct in terms of minorities, in terms of Muslims? What is wrong with their perspective?
You know, Niraj Chaudhuri, in his book Continent of Circe, he has this chapter on India's minorities. And he begins by saying that every time I see a Muslim woman in a burqa, I tell myself, sister, is this what you have been reduced to? Or is this what your community has been reduced to? To live in a dark, joyless world.
What about Hindu women in Parda?
One second. I just gave this as a metaphorical thing. That we somehow believe that the best thing we could do, the kindest thing we could do to our Muslims, and when I say our Muslims,
is to put them on a bus and send them to Pakistan.
When I say our Muslims, I really mean, my stress is on our. We can't disown them. The most terrifying thought is that, you know, when somebody says that disenfranchise India's Muslims or teach them a lesson, how do you do it?
Do you think they were taught a lesson in Gujarat?
You can't. I mean, you know, keep aside individual riots. We are like one huge family with an endless list of relatives, some good, some rotten.
But you've written extensively on Narendra Modi and what happened in 2002. What would you say could have been done differently?
You know, 2002, fortunately or unfortunately, I was not in India. I was trying to calm down the Arab press.
You were there on what
trying
is
to
it?
tell them that,
yes,
look,
you had taken a sarkari job.
Look, not every Muslim in India has been killed, butchered, burnt alive. Stuff happens, we move on. This is not the first time we have had a riot. And Madhu, you know, every life lost is unacceptable to me. But these were not the most terrible riots India has seen.
Well, how do you gauge the temperature of each riot? Each one is horrible.
Each one is horrible, but purely in terms of number of people killed. It's very cynical to say it, but and the circumstances in which they were killed. Remember Nelly, almost 95% of the victims were mothers and children and suckling infants. Recall Bhagalpur, where you sort of hack away at the limbs of a child and then bury the child in a field of cauliflowers. I mean, we have seen such horrors.
The difference is that what happened in 1984 was also could not have happened without the states either looking the other way or its own involvement. And Gujarat 2002 is also seen as that it could not have been possible without the state's involvement or looking the other way.
In 1984, it took them 3 days to call in the army. In 2002, Gujarat, they were calling in the army within 24 hours. When India riots, it loses all sense of what is right, what is wrong.
In both cases, in 84 and in 2002 and in any riot, if the government cannot at any stage control a riot within 2 hours or 3 hours, what do you say about that government?
How do you stop it? Okay, let me turn around the question. You tell me, how do you stop it?
You call in the army?
If you were the chief minister, how would you stop it?
I would call in the army, patrol the streets with tanks, get everybody in the house, curfew. We're not a banana republic, hopefully. We can't control a riot.
No, if you look at the casualty figures in Gujarat, 2,000 were not killed, thousands were not killed. The figures are there. And nearly a third of the victims who died were Hindus. And these are figures which even the government of India endorses.
If you look at it purely from a humanistic view, and where you want to be proud of your country, you want to live in a space that accepts whatever we have today without violence against Hindus or Sikhs, is it too utopian to believe that? Is it naive to believe that?
It's not utopian, it's naive. Pardon me for saying this.
No, I'm asking you.
It's naive. Should there be violence? No, of course not.
No, it's naive as to
it's naive to expect
to have that
just because
hope.
you and I and 20 others sitting in Delhi, we have such nice thoughts. The rest of the country thinks similarly. They don't.
But should religion enter politics? Why is a
That's one of those other desired goals, like everybody should live happily and everybody should...
No, but this is literally taking a religion, making it part of a political construct for a party.
Show me politics anywhere in the world where it is totally devoid of religion. Anywhere in the world.
Well, I think you don't really see it. The only time it's brought up when Obama went to the wrong church, it wasn't used as a reason for voting.
In America, it's all about faith.
About Christianity?
Yeah, it's all about faith and their own other interpretations of their majoritarian faith. What you can do is that you can have a truly secular state, a state that does not factor in religion or faith-related beliefs in the making of policy.
No, but you see, if you look at the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, neither of these, or the British political parties or anywhere in Europe, none of these parties were formed on the basis of one religion. The BJP was formed on Hindutva.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. In fact, the BJP was formed on the principle of Gandhian socialism.
But the connection with the Ayodhya, the Babri Masjid, the connection with the VHP and RSS.
Ayodhya came much later, much later.
But they won the election on the basis of this fervor for Hindutva.
It happened, they reaped the votes. Everybody does it,
But
Madhu.
Kanchan, you can't ignore that it was a religious political party, a religion interpreted by a political party. It wasn't my kind of Hinduism, it was the BJP form of Hinduism. And
I don't think the BJP went around preaching Hinduism or its brand of Hinduism.
But what is a Rath Yatra to Ayodhya but preaching Hinduism?
That was political mobilization.
Exactly.
No, that is political mobilization.
But it was with the Ram temple in mind. So here's a political party using the prop of a religion, in fact usurping a religion which is interpreted a million different ways by every Hindu, because each Hindu practices it in his own way.
But the majority of Hindus were united by this one emotive issue.
Yes, but you were using it politically, is that right?
What was happening? You had the Shah Bano case, where the Supreme Courts considered judgment in allowing a Muslim, an indigent Muslim woman, maintenance after being thrown out of a marital home was subverted by the government of the day.
It was shameful.
It was shameful. And that is where I say that a state can be secular. The state need not have subverted that judgment. What would have happened? The Shahabuddins of the world would have screamed, they would have shouted, they would have burned, they would have burned some buses at best, and any case buses get burnt.
It was a male sort of misogyny.
It wasn't that. It was also trying to impose this whole thing of a contrived Islamic identity.
No, but it was Islamic men putting the pressure on the government that you will lose this vote bank if you pass this.
So they were playing politics of crass communal vote bank.
Exactly.
So that was one fracturing which was happening. Then you had Rushdie's book banned. We were the first to ban the book. I mean, to us goes that dubious distinction. Then you had VP Singh's Mandal implementing the Mandal Commission's report.
So really, Kanchan, what you're saying that the Hindus at this time
you needed to unite. You needed to unite people over community and caste.
There was a lack of confidence
of course
in
there was
Hindus, and this brought a self-confidence, though rather violently.
1980s, 1990s India, and thankfully we have left that period behind. People who have come of age in the last couple of years, they have no idea how terrible those times were. We had Punjab happening, we had Kashmir happening.
We still have Kashmir happening, we still have the Maoists happening.
No, wait 1 second. We had Operation Blue Star, we had Mrs. Gandhi's utterly meaningless, mindless assassination. We had 1984 happen. There was a sense of drift, there was a sense of purposelessness, and then you had, for the first time, India was sort of activated on something like corruption, political corruption. You had Bofors happening. You had a government's huge 2/3 majority evaporate in an election. And you had somebody like VP Singh come in as Prime Minister. And then onwards, it was a precipitous decline. There was a social decline, there was political instability, and there was
So do you think now that we've been through all that, do you think now is the time that we can bring in a more rational view of politics and Hinduism with Narendra Modi?
I don't think Narendra Modi would ever want to confuse faith with politics. I don't think so. What I know of him, he would not want to fuse religion with politics.
But isn't that implied in the kind of things he does?
What does he do?
Well, for example, when the Muslim gave him a scarf, he refused to take it. He gave him a Muslim cap, he refused to wear it in his Sadbhavna program.
Yeah, but that's precisely what you and I should be agitating against. Why must an Indian politician wear a kafia and attend an iftar to show that he or she is secular? Is that what we have reduced secularism to? You know, Madhu, right now they are debating this new divorce law in Parliament. I do not want to comment on the individual clauses in the bill, but if that law is approved, if once that they have put it off for the debate and maybe some amendments, but once that bill turns into law and it is implemented, the biggest beneficiaries of that law will be Hindu women. Don't you think that discriminates, that militates against the idea of a secular republic in the most horrific manner? Why is it that a Hindu woman must benefit, but a Muslim woman must continue to suffer, and just because she had the misfortune to be born into a Muslim family? Had she been born into a Hindu family, she would have access to this law. What kind of a secular republic are we building? Where are we dragging our principles of equality for all, justice for all, fraternity for all? To which levels are we dragging them down to?
But the
Shouldn't
BJP,
we be raising these questions?
The BJP came into power the first time or the second time, promising in their manifesto that they would create a uniform civil code. Withdrawal of Article 370. Yes, I remember that very clearly.
No.
And
you are right.
They could not implement it. They did not implement it.
You are right.
Why didn't they do it?
There is, again, it's very ironical. Article 370, of course, you need 2/3 majority.
And uniform civil code,
Uniform
that was an
civil
essential
code.
element to bring.
I agree with you, and the BJP should have used those 6 years to at least initiate a national debate. It could have done that. I agree with you entirely. Why it didn't do it, I am told.
Coalition partners.
Coalition compulsions. Why is a uniform civil code considered to be non-secular? We have perverted the idea, the concept, the lofty concept of secularism. We have perverted it to mean that unless you pander to the lowest common denominator in any community, whether it is Hindus, Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, whatever, unless you pander to the lowest common denominator, you are not being secular enough.
But you know
we all know how it has happened. Now, everybody thinks, for instance, this thing called the All India Muslim Personal Law Board.
Yeah, but the BJP made a promise that it did not fulfill.
No, of course
Why should people vote for the BJP if they cannot even fulfill a basic promise like that?
Do people understand the import of a uniform civil code?
Well, they voted them in, they must have.
That was one of the many things.
They were campaigning on 3 points very constantly in their speeches.
Not
the
in this election.
uniform civil code, the Article 370.
You media goes to town. I mean, people come
You media?
back.
What about you media?
Okay, media goes to town. People come scurrying back to their office. Offices with a copy of the manifesto tucked under their arms.
No, but you can't expect to tuck it away.
What did they do? They once again they promised.
No, Kanchan, if they are promising it, we can't hide it and tuck it away. Maybe people are looking for it.
Listen, I really wish, and governments cannot work in isolation. Whether it's the CPM
Certainly
government,
not coalition governments. They can't work at all, it seems.
So you need a prop, and I think the time has come for media, especially alternative media such as yours, to think of playing the role, not a supportive role, but a complementary role to policy. Why do we need something like a uniform civil code?
Would like to ask you, your experience working with Brajesh Mishra, were you party to all the wheeling, dealing,
No.
behind the scenes?
I was...
Kuch to dekha hoega?
No. I was just above a chaprasi, so...
Yes, right.
So...
Then it must have been exciting times to see what happens behind the scenes. You think you'll ever get a book out of it?
I wish it was a very enriching experience. And I wish I could write a book. Unfortunately, I can't, because
It's
if
all
I were-
confidential?
partly that, and largely because
Were you disillusioned?
I fought back.
So you were disillusioned and
I fought back
and you
in
were
my
shocked.
own way. I couldn't fight back in the PMO, but I used my post in Cairo to fight back. I was disillusioned to the extent that I perhaps was too starry-eyed, too misty-eyed.
And then you saw the actual mechanics of what goes on behind the scenes, that every political party does what they want to do for their own personal benefit, and you saw the cynicism.
More than benefits, I saw the cynicism.
So that was your
Impulsive
second growing up
response.
then?
Yes, in terms of dealing with government.
And that's why you went back to journalism. Do you think you have to work for a paper that you agree with on its ideology?
No.
Could you work for,
no.
say, Times of India?
I mean, if Times of India or Hindustan Times or Indian
Could you work for
Express,
Times of India?
if they offered me a job and if I needed that job, I would happily do it.
Now, there is this thing in your blogs, stop the non-stop rant against Narendra Modi. No, the impression that he's created is that he hates Muslims, he can't stand Muslims. There are organizations such as Ila Bhatt's Seva, which has been destroyed by him. This Malavika, Sarabhai has a problem with him because she's supporting Muslims. So the impression is that in his leadership and in his Gujarat, there is no place for Muslims. And the point is,
I don't know how do you say that, because if I go purely by available indices, and these are not state government provided indices, Muslims in terms
no,
of
I'm
the-
not saying that. I'm saying if you look at what is being written, he has created that impression.
But that's precisely the whole thing which I'm saying, that if I just spent 3 days traveling in Gujarat.
But that's not the point.
Of course,
That's not the point. Are you saying he loves Muslims?
I don't know whether he loves anybody, but I can't say.
That's the question. He
I
doesn't
cannot
seem
say-
to.
I
He's a
cannot say-
loner.
I
He
cannot
lives
say
alone.
with- I
Does he
cannot
love
say-
anybody?
I cannot say with any certitude, and I would not be able to live with that he does not love Muslims. How can I say that?
So you're saying that he loves them?
I think he's obsessed with Gujarat and every Gujarati.
So you see, I asked him a question once in the Hindustan Times conclave, and he was absolutely sick of answering questions about 2002. And the conclave the theme was the future. So he said, I'm not going to answer questions about the past, ask me questions about the future. So I asked him this question. I said, is there a place for Muslims in the future in Gujarat? And his answer was a beautifully nuanced answer, which was that if they learn to accept, I'm translating, if they learn to accept our culture, our ethos, and are able to rise above their religion to be loyal citizens of India, yes, there is room.
I think that would be equally true to any Hindu too.
Now, if you want to, because of the Islamic religion the way it is, if you want to get their loyalty above their religion, wouldn't there be a better way to convince them that it is essential to be loyal? Because in a country like America, if you're flying some other country's flag, if you are rooting for some other cricket team or football team, you will be thrown in jail, as free as America claims to be. In India, when this was happening, Hindus used to sit passively and seethe. Soon after Ayodhya, that stopped. No Muslim had the guts to sit in a cricket stadium and cheer for a Pakistani team.
Why should they?
Exactly, why should they? But isn't there a better way to convince the Muslims of this country of the essentiality of loyalty to a country that they've chosen to live in, rather than being
I get your
violent?
point. I believe that the trigger for greater integration is economics. I was quite an anti-reformist, and from there I have become a very hardcore pro-reformist person. And I really think that the greater the generation of economic wealth, the greater the opportunities, the better the integration of communities, of identities.
Do you think he's doing that equally?
I am too far removed from Gujarat to make an honest assessment of that. But you wouldn't let me tell you. I have just spent 3 days. I wanted to see for myself, and I didn't take any. And the government didn't know that I was going there. In fact, you are making me say this, and I don't think my editor knew I was going there. He's going to kill me for this. But I just bought tickets and I landed up over there and I hired a car. And after I was on the highway, I was on the Ahmedabad Baroda expressway, and that's when I realized that the driver was a Muslim, Javed.
Not Akhtar.
No, Javed. He's a Banarasi Muslim, but his family has been settled in Gujarat for decades and for generations. And a smart fellow, a very well-informed person, who even knew how to use the GPS on the mobile.
So where did he take you, or where did you take him?
No, we just drove around. We went to
And what did you
Godhra,
see?
and we went to Baroda, we went to Surat, and then
What
we
did you
drove
see?
back. I just wanted to see what was happening. I know no Gujarati, so I couldn't really speak to people. But
Did you go to any of the settlement camps, the Muslim
I did.
settlement? You did?
I did. And what really heartened me was that things which this boy told me, he was talking in terms of aspirations. He's 32 years old and he already owns 2 apartments. He is now putting together money to put a down payment on a 3rd apartment, and then he's going to sell the other 2 and buy this 3rd apartment. How he has 3 children and 2 of them are in school, and the 3rd one is she's just 2 years old or something. And how he feels the need to move out of a ghetto where he stays, to ensure that his children actually learn to think beyond their immediate environs. It was a revelation. And
Tell me about the larger picture.
No, what do you mean by the larger picture?
Like, when did you go and talk to, interview other Muslims?
I spoke to a lot of Muslim women, because I had been told that there is some amount of thinking about Modi among Muslim women. And those whom I spoke to, they told me, each one of them made this point, they feel secure for 2 reasons. One, if their children are leaving home for the day, they know they are going to get back home at night. 2, their husbands and their children are no longer being automatically lured into a world of crime, because there are other economic opportunities happening.
So you must have met very different people from the ones Rajdeep Sardesai met.
I don't give a damn whom Rajdeep
Because
Sardesai meets.
he went around-
Madhu, if I wanted to, I could also meet someone who would be totally disheveled and say, hi, main to mar gayi, loot gayi.
So do you think
barbaad
we
ho gayi."
journalists find the kind of people who will say what we want to hear?
I never made an effort.
Do you think people say what they think we want to hear? Which is why all our exit polls are wrong?
We determine that this shall be my story, and therefore I shall look for quotes that substantiate the story. I have great faith in this country.
Now, you called me naive. Should I call you naive for that? Actually being naive and hopeful in this country is a full-time job, and I pride myself on it. It's a deliberate naivety, because unless you maintain it, you become so cynical you wouldn't do anything with all that you know of the corruption and all that goes on behind the scenes.
But what I could have been fooled into believing something 10 years ago, Today,
You
I won't
can't.
be fooled into believing.
She keeps doing this. I'll have to stop. Thank you very much, Kanchan.
My pleasure.
Thank you.